Hey guys, it's Robin, RS Island Crafts, and welcome to my craft room. Today I thought we would work on some of these pumpkins. Now Rob and I have always loved to decorate. Well, his favorite holiday to decorate was for Halloween, but I like this whole season. I like to decorate for fall and going into Halloween, switching into Thanksgiving, and then Christmas, and then finally Easter. The rest of the holidays are just like maybe something little, but this is like our season. So this is what we've always enjoyed decorating for. Now, Rob was always into the scary, gruesome, frightening little Halloween stuff, but I'm more into the scarecrows and pumpkins and into the fall. Now, I do love to decorate for Halloween, but I also like to have projects that can take me from the beginning of fall all the way through Thanksgiving until I'm ready to start decorating for Christmas. Because I don't know about you guys, but if I decorate for Christmas a little too early, then I'm like ready to take down the tree even before Christmas even gets here. So I like to have seasonal things instead of just holidays. So after Thanksgiving, I'd like to transition into something wintry. So right now I thought we'd work on some pumpkin things for the fall, and if you celebrate Halloween, a little bit into the Halloween things. Now I know it's mostly an American thing. Not all countries do Halloween, even though it's starting to migrate across the world and into different countries. Now, even though Florida we don't have leaves falling, we do have pumpkins that if you put them out on your porch too early, they do rot because it's still pretty hot. I know many times my kids have gone trick-or-treating in shorts because, it's still quite hot and sweaty to be in a costume on Halloween. But now these pumpkins aren't going to go bad, right? So we're going to work on a pumpkin table runner. Now this table runner I found, it's a free pattern for Thermoweb. They are the people that are the makers of Heat and Bond and different other products like that. Can you see Thermoweb? I'm going to go ahead and link to this pattern down below in the description box, but we're going to go ahead and make a table runner with pumpkins. There's a few things we're going to need. Now when you go to the website, they're going to give you all the directions. They're going to give you the measurements for this is a table runner. Then you're going to get the measurements for your background. You're going to be able to print out the pattern that we need to put down for our pumpkins. If you have the sheets of some type of a sewable, fusible, if you don't want to sew, you can have the ones that are permanent, but I never really trust those, and things in my house need to go through the washer. So I like to use a Heat and Bond Light. Then I stitch them down by machine. You can hand applique, buttonhole. There's all kinds of ways you can put these pumpkins down. So that way it's a more permanent and I'm not going to have to worry about it. The Heat and Bond is going to help the edges from fraying too much. I did not use any fabrics that are really, some fabrics, they're a little bit thinner, or there's certain materials that fray a lot. I went and got some 100% quilting cotton and such from Joann's, so that's going to work out fine. I chose, since there are 5 pieces in each pumpkin, we're going to be having 3 pumpkins, 2 large, and then 1 center one that's going to be a smaller one. So I wanted to use 5 different fabrics for the 5 sections, and then I just used one same brown for all the stems. I told you guys it's dangerous for me to go to Joann's at this time of the year because of all the fun Halloween fabrics and stuff, but you needn't have to worry about me because there was only 4 Halloween fabrics there, and one of them happened to be this really cute orange polka dot that I thought was going to be fun for the pumpkins, but I started wandering around Joann's first before I grabbed that. And yes, another customer grabbed it and bought everything that was left on the bolt. So I just went over to the regular section. Some of these are from the fall because I do have some pumpkins and these are fall leaves. But I just went over to the orange section because Joann's has it all by color. And I just found these 3 fabrics there. And then I just found this brown over in the same section where everything's situated by color. So if you're not into an area that has fall this time of year, or if your store doesn't happen to have any because they've sold out, if you can't pick them up online or however, just go ahead and look at different areas. You're not going to need very much. So what I did is I picked up just 1/8 of a yard of some orange fabrics. And when you're purchasing them at the 1/8 of a yard, it's a very inexpensive way to get some fabrics. I cut out 5 pumpkins because I'm going to do 3 on a table runner and 2 extra ones. And I still have quite a bit left. I only used pretty much this much of my fabric. So I have plenty left to do several more pumpkin projects. I do have a couple more in mind that we might want to play with. Now the lady who cut mine did cut mine a little bit generous. All of these are a different width. I thought it was quite funny. Now this pumpkin one I already had at home, but these, none of them measure up, but at least they were all more than 5 inches, so it worked out fine. And I picked up a 1/4 yard of the brown because I was thinking I might want to use this for the binding, but I changed my mind and I don't think it's going to be enough anyway. I found this fun background fabric. It's kind of a creamy color on a light, it's a light cream background with a beigey, almost a golden beigey color of the print on top of it. And when I was looking at this, I thought when you put it this way that these almost have a pumpkin shape to it. So I thought that would be fun to have little almost pumpkins on the background with my pumpkins on the foreground. And I didn't want a straight solid because I wanted to have more movement and more fun in my design here. So when you go to the website, they're going to have 2 printables to print out. You can either print these on paper, or as I said, if you have the Heat and Bond sheets, you can put those right into your printer and it'll print right on there for you. And you don't have to worry about tracing or anything. You can just cut it out and put it on your fabric. Now we're not going to do any of that tracing or anything here. I'm going to pop up in the iCard. I've done this before with the appliques when we did the Christmas and winter mug rugs. But I will show you real quick on how to cut these out. I just use a regular pencil, a wooden school pencil, to trace on them. I have used ink pens and Sharpies and stuff in the past and markers, but they tend to get up all on the underside of my hand, on my palm there, because as you're drawing, you're sketching it out like this, and if you don't do it quite right, it'll get on there. I just used a regular pencil and it worked out fine. It didn't come off when I pressed it with my iron or anything like that. Then I just trimmed it off along the edge, and I'll be all set to go to put these down onto my project. Since you're going to get all that information that you need in that other video. If there's anything missing, just go ahead and let me know and I'll show you. When I went ahead to trace these patterns, I found that I could just put this sheet right here underneath my Heat and Bond and I could just trace it out right like that. But they were close enough together that I didn't have to worry. And then I just put the stems in a spot wherever it would fit on my Heat and Bond there. Because you want to make sure that you're going to have about 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch. You need to have some space in between. So when you cut in between these and we press it down on our fabric, we want to make sure we have that space between the line and where we just trimmed off the extra fabric. Because when we get to this point, this is where we're going to trim exactly on the line. And then we have a nice little pumpkin top, little stem. Now, if you prefer it, have it to be green or something like that, you can do it green. You can make little tendrils. You can decorate it any way you want. You can have your pumpkins be all white. You can have them black and white, some type of a swirly design in it, anything you want. Pumpkins don't have to be orange, correct? I did want mine to be orange. Now, since I was doing 3 pumpkins, the other trick I did, you may notice that I put numbers in each of these. I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You're going to make 2 of the large pumpkins and 1 of the small. And then I did A, B, C, D, E, and F. So I wanted to make sure that I knew exactly which pumpkins went to where. And when I did my large pumpkin, I did A1, B1, all the way down to F2. So that I knew that these were going to be the first pumpkin, and that these would be the second. So I wanted to make sure just that I had 5 different fabrics. It's easy to tell if I put numbers on it that way, but such a small project with only 3 pumpkins, 2 of them being the same, you should be able to tell them either way. But that's just one of the little tricks that I like to do. Now today we're going to do the 3 pumpkin table runner, but if you didn't need a table runner or you didn't want anything like this, you can just do 1 individual pumpkin. Just cut your background out large enough for whatever size pumpkin you're doing, whether it's the large one or the small one, to make sure it's just a good enough size that you can have a little space all the way around it for your background and just make it into a wall hanging like I'm going to do with my other pumpkins. Let me move these out of the way and then we'll talk about how to get our pumpkins onto here. Now I was playing with this a little bit before I turned the camera on just to see how I would like to have everything placed. And they recommend folding it in half, your background piece of fabric in half first, so that you can find the center, and that's where we're going to place our small pumpkin. I just went ahead and finger pressed just a little bit on there, just so I know where it's at. And they recommend making sure that your pumpkins are at least an inch off the bottom of your fabric so that you have enough space that when you put your binding on, that it doesn't go into the pumpkin area. So here's my center right here. Here's my little pumpkin. Now when I was playing with this, I have this little ruler that I was using, a little 6.5 inch ruler. And when it said to place them an inch from the bottom, I went ahead and I lined up, I just set my pumpkins down and I lined them up there, and I did all 3 of them, and I noticed that there was an inch down here at the bottom, but there was like 2 3/4 or 3 inches or something at the top. So for me, I decided that I wanted to go ahead and do it at 1.5 inches. So that would give me 1.5 inches at the bottom, and I believe it was 3 inches, so I got 1.5 inches at the top, 1.5 inches at the bottom. It kind of balanced out. Now your small pumpkin, of course, is shorter, so there's going to be more room at the top, but once we get our other ones on, you'll see how it all balances out. Now one of the little things with the patterns is each of the pieces came with a little dot on it, so when you transfer it and you trace it, go ahead and trace out that little dot also, because it's a registration mark. It just makes it easier so you know which one is the top. So anywhere there's a dot, that's going to be the top of your pumpkin. So I put my bottom of my small pumpkin right there. I have my center marked right there at the 3 inch line. So I about centered that. And this is where it becomes easier when you have them numbered and also with the dots on the top. So you want to make sure that you have all of them set up so that all the dots are at the top. And since I numbered mine, that I know that mine are going to go 1, 2, 3 for the center, 4, and 5. But since everything's done in a mirror, it's going to go backwards this way. So I've got 1 and 2, 3, 4 and 5, and all the dots are on the top. Now this part is up to you. You do have a limited amount of space when you cut if you cut your background fabric out at exactly what they say. I believe it is 35.5 inches. I went with 36 just because it was easier to fold in half and cut it on a cutting mat at 18, and then you open it up and it's 36 instead of having to figure out all the extra. So I am going to make sure that I have enough for all 3 of them, and I like it when these are really close together and you just have that little bit of space in there. So you can play with it a little bit and see how you like it. See if you like it with more space in there. And what I did is I laid out all 3 first. As you can see, I haven't fused anything down yet. Lay them all out first and see how you like it. And then if you want, you can put a little pin in them to hold them in place. So once you know that that's what you like. Me, I'm going to live on the wild side, and I'm just going to go ahead and play with it again with you guys. I was trying earlier to make sure there's exactly the same amount of space everywhere, like maybe 1/4 inch everywhere, but because it tapers down in the center, you can go across that center line and make sure that they're all the same if you want. I think I'm happy just kind of eyeballing it. So just fiddle it around with a little bit until you get it just the way you like. As I said, you can go ahead and pin these down. Pull my little ruler out, see if I like it. You can do an ombre effect. You can do shades from light to dark or dark to light, or mix them all up in light, dark, light, dark, light. As I said, I just grabbed the 5 oranges that I thought looked really nice together, and I just grabbed those. And that way each pumpkin had 1 of each fabric. I would have liked to have more of a light, dark, but that's okay. I didn't have too many options to choose from Joann's. A lot of the prints of the oranges were either a solid, which I wasn't looking for a solid or a semi-solid. I did want it for my stem, but for my pumpkins I wanted more pattern fabric. So this is the way it ended up for me. And I think it's still going to work out fine, that it's going to look really lovely when it's all done. But you can do any way you want. As I said, you're going to have them all be exactly the same. So once you get them set, we're going to take the backs off. I think I'm going to go ahead and just start with this one right here in the center. The trick that they say is to use a pin that you can scratch this, so if you start to dig at the edges here, you could fray your fabric. So you want to give a little bit of a slight scratch in the center to peel it off. a pin is really easy to lose, so I just go ahead and use my seam ripper. Just give it a light scratch. I don't want to cut my fabric, that's why they probably say to use a pin. But I am forever losing those. Now remember where your top is. Now one of the things with Heat and Bond when you're using any types of these fusible is when you are doing it, you don't want to press it, read the directions that come with your package. You don't want to overheat it, because if you use too much heat on this, it'll become crispy and it won't stick. And the whole point was to have a fusible to make this easy to stick it down. Okay. Now projects like this are great for one of these little small handheld irons. Just remember that this does not turn off automatically. So it's great for these projects because it's small, so I can press in all the little areas, but I have to remember I keep this plugged in at I have the surge protector strip with a little light on. So at the end of my day, no matter what I'm doing, I know I have to always unplug everything out of there and turn it off. I don't just turn it off. And it's great because when I leave the room and I turn off the light and I look back, if there's anything glowing, then I know I didn't unplug it. So I need to make sure that I'm always careful that I don't leave my iron plugged in. So I went ahead and I removed all the paper from the back of my fusibles. I've set everything where I like it. Now I'm just going to gently tap in place to get everything where I like it, and then I will fully press it down. I'm going to go ahead and leave my ruler here for now and start at the top. I don't want anything to shift. So just give a gentle tap just to set a little bit of the fusible to hold it so nothing shifts on me. I'm going to move my ruler. Now I am definitely a scrubber when I press and stuff like that. But for projects like this, I try to remind myself I did want to scrub, but I want to do an up and down motion just to make sure everything's set. And then after I do all 3 pumpkins, I will go ahead and give it a nice iron from the back, nice good pressing, and then I'll know everything's in place. Now I will be stitching it down, so then that's also an extra benefit of holding it in place, but the fusible sets it there for me so I don't have to worry about pins when I get to the sewing machine, and most times I don't have to worry about fraying. Now if it's on a regular quilt that you're going to wash a lot, then you're possibly going to have some fraying, but your stitches on the edge are going to prevent that, and there's plenty of different stitches that you can use to stop the fraying. I like to do my applique with just a straight line stitching. I've never been a fan of the satin stitch. I don't like having the abundance of thread on my fabric like that, but if that's something that you like to do, then that's perfect for this. You can try to do the buttonhole stitch. I had on my other brother's sewing machine, there was a mending stitch for when you mend like socks, and it made this like X's and everything, so it filled in all the space. That was a really good stitch to put down here. If your machine has some fun fancy stitches, go ahead and give it a try. So this one is all set, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next one. Set my iron down somewhere that I don't knock it over and I don't burn myself. Now there's not much directions for the next part of it. They just tell you to put the large ones on either side, just to make sure that there's enough space on it for everything. So I was thinking that if I found the center for this one, then I would just go ahead and fold this over and find the center for my big guys. And if I do it right, it'll be close to even on the ends. And if it's not perfectly even, then I can go ahead and just trim it up. There's marking my center for the next large one. Now we're going to go through the same process. We're going to put the little ruler on the bottom. Now remember, for me, I'm doing it at 1.5 inches. You can do it anything you want. You can have more of your background fabric. You can have it wider if you want. The dot is at the top. Then I'm just going to go through and lay it all out. So when I was doing this earlier, as I said, I was struggling a little bit to find it. But now looking through, I can see up through the camera, up above you guys, and it's really helping me decide how I like these to look. I can see it as a whole better than I can when I'm just looking at this. I don't know what that phenomenon is. I'm sure someone might have a name for it, but I like it. So get it to a certain point that you like and maybe take a picture of it with your camera or your phone and just go ahead and look at it and see how you like it. Now I like the way this is, so I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. I'm going to peel the backing off and get them all pressed in. So there's pumpkin number 2. Now we're going to do the same thing down here for the second large pumpkin, pumpkin number 3. I'm going to go ahead and just fold this to the pumpkin here, line up my edges, give a little finger press, and we can lay out the third pumpkin. I've always loved using fusible, and while I do enjoy hand applique, I just think this is so much quicker depending on the project you're doing and what you're going for. It's nice. I enjoy having a hand project laying around the house to do, but at the same time, sometimes I just want the project done. So it's nice to just go ahead and have it done by machine. Now I could have done this as it's called, what is it, appliquilt, where you put your applique down, and as you're stitching your outside lines, you're also quilting it at the same time. I do enjoy doing that. I thought about it, but then I decided, well, I don't know what I'm going to use for my backing fabric yet, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it the standard way. Plus, not all of you are going to want to do it. If you already know that process, then you can just go ahead and do it that way if you'd like. And I'm sure somewhere along the lines we will do a project like that together. And maybe I'll do these small wall hangings, because at that point, when I just do the one pumpkin wall hangings, I will know what my backing is going to be for them. So we can go ahead and appliquilt those. Now all the widths in my pumpkin and the spaces, they may not all be the same, but not every pumpkin is the same in the pumpkin patch either. So I have no problem with just going ahead and letting it be random so that they're not all matchy-matchy. If they're close enough, that is great. It looks good. If it's not, you can always just move things around a little bit. Once I pull the paper off, I'm going to have to readjust anyway. So let me take the paper off of these. Now one of the things I was thinking about is if you're going to do maybe a satin stitch or a buttonhole stitch, you might have a little bit of a tight fit down here. This pattern was designed to just do a straight outline stitch on it. And if you're doing a satin stitch, you might have it double up on the bottom. So in some areas you might want to have it a little bit spread open a little bit more. Do a little practice one. Just see how it looks for a little couple small pieces of fabric. Maybe just cut out this part here and test it out to see how it looks. You know, if you're a satin stitcher or a buttonhole stitcher, you know how it works and how it looks. So it's totally up to you. I was also thinking that if you didn't want them to look like they're sitting on the ground, you could always put your small pumpkin up a little bit higher and split the difference so that it's even in the center. Now I came close. I'm just a little bit off, I think, on being perfectly centered between the two big pumpkins, but I'm fine with that. And I was also thinking that if you're worried about having it perfectly level down here, if you can fold this up and make a pressing line so that all the bottom of your pumpkins sit on that crease. You can also make it just a little bit wider, maybe a ½ inch or an inch wider when you cut your background, so that you can trim the bottom if you need to, if any of it got a little bit of off balance. I like to press from the back, and this time I don't mind to go ahead and do a little scrubbing and moving my iron on it. Another thing I like about this iron is I can do it also left-handed. So I have a tripod right here where you guys are sitting, and it gets a little bit in the way for me to try to iron right-handed this way. I do things left-handed. I am a bit ambidextrous. I am able to write both hands, not as well as I used to as a kid. So it is sometimes easier just to do it left-handed, but I just like the versatility of this iron. It's small, it's not very heavy. It's great for taking the classes, I would imagine. Not that I do any traveling to go to classes or retreats, but if you are that type of quilter, everything in nice little press. Then I'm going to go ahead and unplug this iron so I don't forget about it, because it is not plugged into a surge protector. There you can see the two of them, and there's the third. So now I'm going to take it over to my sewing machine, and I'm just going to take some orange thread for the pumpkins and brown for the stem, as I said. You can use a contrast or just a white if you like. Anything you like you can use, a yellow. Just go ahead and stitch around there. This time I think I want my stitching to disappear, because otherwise I think a yellow would probably look really nice on here. I'm just going to pull out my light orange. I think I might have a medium orange, and stitch all these down, and I'll come back and let you see what it looks like. Okay, I've gone ahead and stitched it all down with just a simple stitch, your regular straight stitch. I just kind of followed along the edge, just outlining it about 1/8 of an inch, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. I tried to get it to go down into the corners and back stitch, but I didn't catch it all the time, so I do have a little bit of loose. This will fray probably eventually as it gets used and washed, but I'm okay with that. And then see, the thread just blends in so well. But there's brown on top of brown. I can't see from this angle if you can see it, but you know it's there, right? So here they go, all 3 pumpkins. So the next step is to go ahead and get some backing for this. I'm going to use some cotton batting so it stays nice and flat, because it is a table runner. And then I think I'm just going to go ahead and free motion. Maybe I'll do some swirlies around it. I have to see what type of thread, if I have a nice little creamy light tan to go on here. Otherwise, I might just go ahead and use an orange or something like that. I don't know. Quilt it up, bind it, and it'll be all set. So if you have any questions, go ahead and let me know. And next week, we'll go ahead and do just the individual pumpkin, and I'll show you how to appliquilt. Really, all it is layering your backing, your batting, your topping, and then quilting all through 3 layers as you're doing it. But if you have any questions from this part of the video, let me know next week, and I'll do a longer video of whatever you need to see. Sound good? Thanks for hanging out with me while I worked on my pumpkins this week. Hey, I really like the way these turned out. Now the salad pumpkins are fun, but I like the separation of these. Oh, I know what I wanted to show you. When I was quilting these, I trimmed most of these up, but I would just go ahead and do a little back stitch and then just bring it right over to the next section. I did end it. I didn't want to carry the thread that far, so I did end it and start over. So these are just the threads from the bobbin. I've already trimmed the ones from the front. So I just go ahead, since I back stitch, I will just trim these off close to the threads themselves, and then it'll be all set. You can leave the threads if you want, but based on my background fabric, I'm a little concerned that they would show through, because it is a little bit of a lighter fabric. I love these little snip scissors. Do you guys have these at all? They're really great. I keep them by my sewing machine to just snip threads. I was actually looking at a new pair at Joann's, because see, you could see the underneath there. They don't go together. Are they supposed to go together? Are these just bent? I found them somewhere in my room, so they weren't brand new, and I don't even know where I got them from. Probably some type of a promotional thing where they send you stuff. But I don't know, the tips work pretty good as long as I have it one way or the other. So anyways, I was looking at them at Joann's when I was there purchasing fabric the other day. It takes a while to get through the fabric line when you're having several things cut, and they have all the scissors and everything at my Joann's right there, so I was kind of eyeballing these. Very dangerous. So thank you guys for hanging out with me today and doing a little stitching. Really like the way these are looking. All right, that's it. No more. I'll see you guys next week. Bye. Bye.